You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
Let's get back to strolling instead of scrolling. Before we can safely come together, we need the facts on COVID-19 vaccines. Visit getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision for yourself and for your family.
Some carriers will give you just one measly entertainment subscription. One is no fun. With Verizon, there's up to 7 entertainment subscriptions with your unlimited plan. That's 7 times the... 7 times the... No! 7 times the... Music, gaming, Disney+, Hulu, ESPN+, and more. That's 7 times the entertainment!
Because everyone deserves better.
And with plans starting at just $35, better costs less than you think.
If you think all pads are exactly the same, think again. This is Always Ultra Thins reinvented with the Always Triple Protection System. This pad wicks gushes 90% faster, absorbs even more so you can feel dry, and locks odors in. Rethink your pad for up to 100% leak-free and odor-free comfort with the totally reinvented Always Ultra Thins. This is always like never before.
Nope. Nope.
Come on, him?
Ooh, I like him.
Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up message quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent, so you can use less.
He's an 8.
He's a 9.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
At Tyson, we know taste is local. Some like their beef pit smoked, their chicken spiced all the way up, or their pork sweet and saucy. Local flavors, global impact. That's what feeding the world is all about.
This is the BCSN Pod Zone, your place for the news, views, and conversations about all things related to HBCU athletics. Here are the BCSN Sports Wrap, Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, Knights of the Round Table, the pregame show, the Carlos Brown Show, the ONG Strike Zone, and more in one place. We are changing the way you consume HBCU sports, one broadcast at a time.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
Let's get back to strolling instead of scrolling. Before we can safely come together, we need the facts on COVID-19 vaccines. Visit getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision for yourself and for your family.
Some carriers will give you just one measly entertainment subscription. One is no fun. With Verizon, there's up to 7 entertainment subscriptions with your unlimited plan. That's 7 times the... 7 times the... No! 7 times the... Music, gaming, Disney+, Hulu, ESPN+, and more. That's 7 times the entertainment!
Because everyone deserves better.
And with plans starting at just $35, better costs less than you think.
If you think all pads are exactly the same, think again. This is Always Ultra Thins reinvented with the Always Triple Protection System. This pad wicks gushes 90% faster, absorbs even more so you can feel dry, and locks odors in. Rethink your pad for up to 100% leak-free and odor-free comfort with the totally reinvented Always Ultra Thins. This is always like never before.
Nope. Nope.
Come on, him.
Ooh, I like him.
Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up messes quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent so you can use less.
He's an 8.
He's a 9.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
At Tyson, we know taste is local. Some like their beef pit smoked, their chicken spiced all the way up, or their pork sweet and saucy. Local flavors, global impact. That's what feeding the world is all about.
This is the BCSN Pod Zone, your place for the news, views, and conversations about all things related to HBCU athletics. Here are the BCSN Sports Wrap, Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, Knights of the Round Table, the pregame show, the Carlos Brown Show, the ONG Strike Zone, and more in one place. We are changing the way you consume HBCU sports, one broadcast at a time.
Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won. Yeah. I hope my team they won. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with this hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with episode 359, deep in the heart, as we say. Welcome to episode 359, the Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that is covering the sporting HBCU all things HBCU sports for institutions large and small. From the NAIA to the NCAA, we share insights and information on HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics, and facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs in the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host, Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Mike Washington is still on assignment. He promised he'd be here Thursday. I'm just saying, we'll see. But that's what he said. So
Mike with the polite mic drop today.
Yeah, he did get a polite mic there. We'll wait until he gets on to tell you. But the dude is traveling in hiding first class. And I ain't talking about just first class tickets. We'll let him tell you about that. We're filming from our home studios in Centers, Caseway 12:30 a.m. studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer. That's multi-Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University. And we have none other than clinical professor moving up to tenure professor, it seems, A.D. Drew. I just got news from the board. Drew, I'll break it here today. Drew, they voted in favor of all the paper that we sent in from the provost office, things and all the writings that go back and forth. They voted to approve everybody that went up tenure, and you are now tenure professor, no longer clinical. So you're pretty good. Associate professor with tenure. That's significant there.
You get health benefits now.
and this is all I'm gonna say on that. There's a joke in that statement that you just made, Dr. Cavil, talking about our paperwork going through and getting signed. But I'm not gonna touch that joke on this episode.
I appreciate you. We did promise that before we jumped on this. So well done. You stuck to it. With that being said, Charles, how you doing today?
Doing well. I want to send a shout out to any of my class that drops in tonight. Might get a little credit this upcoming week. FPMT 476. So definitely want to send a shout out to my class, History of HBCU Athletics class.
Now I see you have the book for the instruction in the background.
Yes, this is your book that you should be in right now. So.
Not right now, Charles. As soon as we get off.
Right, as soon as we get off. There are papers coming due. So,
man, both of y'all are off to a great start in terms of your academic pedigree. With that being said, today's episode of Inside the HBC Sports Lab is sponsored by THG Agency LLC. THG Agency is a company that provides sporting and educational consulting and data analytics. Let me give a shout out to all the lab listeners out there. I know a lot's going on. I appreciate you taking your time and coming on over to check what we're going to say. We're going to give you some actual basketball talk. We can do the mid-majors on Tuesday, as you know, today. And we'll get in the mid-majors on Thursday. Stick with us. A lot of good action. Some major updates to the poll ranking. Some changes. Some big dogs went down, if you would, in terms of the MEAC. You might even call it some upsets in the SWAC, not maybe as big as that, but they did occur with an undefeated team going down in the SWAC for their first loss of the conference season So pretty good stuff going on, and we'll get into that. Before you do that, no, we're going to open on some news of the day. We're going to stick again on the athletic framework. So Bowie State University removes the interim tag from Kyle Jackson, named head football coach. This is coming out of CIAA. Bowie State University has removed the interim tag from Kyle Jackson's title, named him the 10th head coach in the program history of the Bulldogs since football was reinstated in 1972, as announced by the Vice President of Intercollegiate Athletics and Recreation, Clyde Dalty Jr., on Monday, January 23rd. Quote is saying, "It is with great Bulldog pride that we begin the next chapter in the BSU football with the hiring of Carl Lamont Jackson as our next head football coach," end quote, said the AD there, VP of Athletics. Now, let me stop right there before we get into it. We'll get into our break, but before we do that, I also wanted to talk a little about Quinn Gray to Albany State. I know we talked about this already, but you can go to HBCU Game Day, where they have an interview with him directly, where they titled it with Quinn Gray to Albany State represents a return to the HBCU culture, if you would. In the midst of coaching chaos, Quinn Gray, Albany State is an important return to HBCU football culture. We once knew it. We've seen it across the landscape, really over the last 2 years when Coach's Move came up. But it's a nice interview with Quinn Gray that really talks about how he was looking forward to this opportunity. With that being said, we're going to jump into our first break. No, it's quick there, but I did want to give you a little nose there. As we come back, we're going to give you the polls. We want to get in this poll so we can talk a little bit of basketball. So stick with us. We'll get right back to you after this first break.
Support the Black College Sports Network so we can continue to provide you coverage. Go to myjbn.com/support and be a part of the Black College Sports Network.
Let's get back to getting ticks instead of watching flicks. Before we can safely get out there, we need the facts on COVID-19 vaccines. Visit getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision for yourself and for your crew.
Charmin Ultra Soft has so much cushiony softness, it's hard for your family to remember they can use less.
Sweet pillows of softness.
This is soft. Holy Charmin. Oh, excuse me. Roll it back, everybody. Sorry. Charmin Ultra Soft is so cushiony soft, you'll want more, but it's so absorbent, you can use less, so it's always worth it. Now, what did we learn about using less?
You gotta roll it back, everybody.
We all go. Why not enjoy the go with Charmin?
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties through its programs Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and parenting education coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentjax.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBC Sports Lab. I want to get into the major division polls. Chivalry's not dead, so we're going to start with the women. I'm going to give that to you right now. We have a lot of teams looking into this in terms of outside looking in other polls. One team dropped out. Prairie View had a tough overtime loss, and then they got pounded by Alabama A&M. Or at least late in the game. They were playing with them, going back and forth, a couple of runs and things of that nature. But Prairie View and them Panthers, after getting a major upset, they go on the road, and we told you to look out. That's always a tough trip, I should say. Similar when you go to the Texas two-step, you go to the Alabama side of the conference, if you would. It's a tough trip, and now obviously you add Florida. So you go those significant long-distance trip. If you're not careful, man, you can come out of there with 2. Remember the general rule of thumb, as you in what we've seen over the years. If you can split on the road, you're doing pretty good. If you can get 2, you really are living on high cotton, as they said. Not to be for the Panthers as they fall to 8-11, 5-3. Let's get into some of those receiving votes. Southern Jaguars 8-10, 5-2. You have Prairie View Panthers. They still are in the poll rankings in terms of receiving votes, if you would. And then you have Howard Bison sitting outside of there as well, trying to find a mix. Let's get into the 5 top teams that are really getting it done this year as we get into week 3. Alabama A&M Bulldogs. They get it done. Overtime win over Texas Southern. They played them close, but they get the win, and then they come back and get even another solid win against Prairie View to find a way in the top 5. They sit at 8-9, 6-1. We're not ranked with 64 points. Then we go to number 4, Jackson State Tigers, sitting at 4. They can't continue to rebound off that tough road loss. They come home, get it done, 9-6-1, 82 points. They stay at number 4, though. At number 3, you have Norfolk State Spartans sitting at 16-4, 4-1. They do fall from the 1 spot. Remember, they were dominating, having most of the votes. They have 90 points, no first place votes at this point, and they fall from number 1 after a tough loss on Monday to Morgan State. We're going to see that's a refrain that goes over to the men's side, just to tease, but we'll see what that looks like in terms of rank. Bringing us to number 2, North Carolina A&T State Aggies. They are on top of the Colonial, at least by half a game at this point, as they are 13-6 and 7-1. With a couple of big wins this past weekend, they have 3 first place votes, increased and gained a first place vote, sitting at 104. They move up a spot from number 3, and they sit at number 2. At number 1, Morgan State Bears take over the number 1 ranking for the first time this year. Ooh. 5 first place votes, 11-6, 4-0. Got the big win over Norfolk State. It was at home. So they have controlled home court. Quietly, methodically, they've gotten it done, non-conference-wise, but everybody was focused on Jackson and Norfolk State, rightfully so. But when they got their chance, they made their statement. We'll see if they're able to continue to move forward and hold on to the number 1 spot, because now you were the hunter. Now you become the hunted. It's a different feeling when you sit at the top. But they moved from number 2, and they certainly earned it as they get it done this week. Let me go to you, Charles. What are your thoughts on the top 5 on the women's side for the major division in week number 3?
A&M, big week for A&M, going 2-0 this weekend. But that win over Prairie View, that was that opened my eyes a little bit with regards to Alabama A&M. I kind of written them off a little bit after they made the Mississippi sling. And they were basically drubbed by Jackson State. But for them to fight and claw back in and get back in number 5, kudos to Alabama A&M. A&T was the team I was expecting to bump up to number 1. But for Morgan State, that was a big win over Norfolk State. I got to give them credit for them to vault into the number 1 spot. Like you said, it's a little bit different now that you become the hunted. That's a different mindset of being the hunter. So kudos to Morgan State. That was a big win over Norfolk State.
Good stuff, good stuff. Eddie Drew, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm looking at your top 5 poll and compare that to the power ranking that we did on Sunday. And it's the same 5 teams.
The one that you feel a little vindicated about that you let everybody. Yeah, I got you. Yeah. Good stuff.
And probably were it not for Norfolk State's loss last night, they would probably be the same 5 teams in the same order that we had on Sunday night.
That's correct. That's correct.
But I do question. I'm like Charles. I question Morgan over A&T. 4-0, undefeated in conference does look good. Give Morgan State all this props. No disrespect to Morgan State, but I think A&T both in conference and out of conference, has played a slightly tougher schedule. And they've got, obviously they played 2 more games, but they're 7-1 in that conference may actually be better than a 4-0 in the MEAC. No disrespect to the MEAC, but the Colonial Conference is a little bit of a higher rated conference and a tougher conference. So I would have put A&T in the number 1 spot after the Norfolk State loss. Got to keep Jackson above A&M, if nothing more than else, because of the head-to-head. Even with the records being similar, 8-9, 9-8, there's really not too much of a difference like that. But Jackson State with the head-to-head, I think that is correct, having them in the one spot ahead of them.
I like where you think. Both of y'all pretty general. Y'all seem to know what you're doing. You know, it's hard to pick on you, even though I tried on Sunday. But I guess. But I think you're right. There is an argument that you can push for A&T. I think what you see here with the voters is that sometimes it's hard to make that jump over a team, particularly when that team beat the former number 1 team.
And that's another.
So I think there was a lot of credit going to that. And what I like about the polls when we do it is just continue to win, coaches, players. You continue, you control it. Continue to win, and you'll find a way to get it done. Let's talk a little bit about that in terms of your thoughts of the play. In general, what are some of the matchups that stood out to you over the weekend? Obviously, we talked about Morgan State defeating Norfolk State 57-46. Central got a big win over Maryland Eastern Shore. Howard has looked like they rebounded a little bit and maybe straightened the ship. We'll see what that means, 62-58. Obviously, those were the Monday games. On Saturday, Howard failed to Morgan State and really got beat up a little bit there, 71-49. So they needed that win on Monday to kind of right the ship just in split, as we say. Norfolk State had a close one. Maybe this was an indication of what was taking on. They went on the road to Coppin State, and they just got out 49-43. What are your thoughts, either whether it's at the MEAC or you're looking at the SWAC? You can talk about any of those things that match up.
Actually, the one that kind of caught my eye was you had a bunch of teams going into this weekend that were 1-loss teams, and the Bethune v. Jackson State game was the one that I really kind of caught my eye, because I wanted to see if Bethune was a team that was, you know, trending in the right direction, and where did Jackson State come? I mean, with regards to their program, how did they come out of that Texas two-step with that loss? But they came out with, you know, a resounding statement, if you will, this past weekend with big wins over Bethune-Cookman and Florida A&M by sizable margins. So it you know, kind of kept me in the know that Jackson State is still the team that everybody's still chasing in the SWAC.
I tried to tell everybody, listen to me last time he was on the show coming back Monday when everybody's like, well, no, I watched that game. Prairie View played really well in that game, and you could tell emotional, and just outplayed them that particular game. But it wasn't like you saw bad things other than the turnovers to Jackson State, and obviously that's something you can focus on. The game that you talk about with Jackson State and Bethune-Cookman, that was an 82-60 game for those that hadn't seen the score and just realized they won. Obviously, Alcorn defeated FAMU 72-60. Pine Bluff took down Southern 70-53. Pine Bluff maybe trying to right the ship. Alabama A&M started, as I said, with Texas Southern 72-69 to get out of the overtime. And then we had the overtime down in Montgomery with Alabama State getting it done against Prairie View 77-74. And Grambling getting it done over Mississippi Valley. On Monday, obviously, you had the reciprocal of those games, but you had Jackson State making another statement, defeating FAMU 70-51. So 2 20-plus point victories. You had Southern rebounding and defeating Mississippi Valley 74-43. Pine Bluff over Grambling 64-57. Grambling started off really hot, but they've fallen on hard times of late. Alcorn defeats Bethune, so they take 2 losses on the road, 58-49. Alabama A&M takes care of Prairie View, as we said, 66-55. And Alabama State over Texas Southern, 81-73. Drew, either the MEAC or the SWAC. When you look at the major division, what stood out to you? You might even want to talk a little bit about A&T, with some big victories as they were able to continue to roll. Tennessee State still struggles a little bit, splitting in terms of what they're looking at. What are your thoughts in terms of the women major division with some of these scores and matchups, basically?
Well, with A&T, with the success that they're having in the Colonial, this may be the year where we see a third HBCU get into the tournament. Because obviously, you're going to have the MEAC and the SWAC champions, but what's to say A&T doesn't win the Colonial the way they've been playing? Now, we know the Colonial is going to probably try to do everything they can to not have A&T win the Colonial, but, it is what it is. And correct me if I'm wrong, Howard is the defending MEAC champion.
That's correct.
When is Howard going to step up and act like they are the defending MEAC champion? They have not been consistent this year. They got drubbed by Morgan. And if you remember the last couple of years, Morgan Howard battles were epic on the women's side for the last 2 years. And right now, you still got Norfolk, you've got Morgan, but it's like Howard, it has dropped from first tier to second tier right now. So when are we going to see Howard? Howard needs to take care of their business against the bottom half of the MEAC, and they got to get both of those games on the return trip where they play Norfolk and Morgan later on this season, because they are 0-2 against those teams thus far.
You talk about A&T. They do the Friday, Sunday matchup. So A&T hosted Stony Brook and defeated them 68-60. But then they traveled to Hampton on Sunday. Ended up being a tough matchup. Went to overtime, but A&T comes out and gets it done 75-70 to maintain the conference standing with just one loss. Go ahead, Charles.
Power rankings wise, CAA conference versus the MEAC. A&T with the CAA mid-tier, 7-1 mid-tier, Norfolk and Morgan number one in our poll. A matchup of both of them. Well, what are we looking at?
Probably gonna have A&T as the favorite. Just based on the conference rating, you would have A&T as the favorite. Probably a high single-digit favorite if I was just guessing at the line.
I like that. I think I would agree with that in terms of it being favorite, but I think it would be a heck of a matchup. Both of them have post players that have been really good in terms of what they've been able to do. And you having followed Jackson State, you really have gotten a chance to see, particularly over the last couple of years, where in the past, guards could really get a lot of things done, but you introduce the big players, post players that are successful and really know how to move their feet, get the ball off the glass, and you have guards that can feed them consistently, makes it really good. And I think that's why both of these teams have played really well. And so that would be the thing that you wanted to match up and looking at matchup in regards to how they were able to play in the post. Morgan State really good in terms of what they do defensively. So it'd be interesting to see the offensive juggernaut of what you see with A&T and what that would mean in a lot of ways for Morgan State. So I would agree with Drew just coming in terms of how people tend to look in terms, particularly with being more conference games played with the Colonial. Oftentimes you'll see them get a little more benefit in terms of that head-to-head matchup. But that's why you play the games, or why it would be nice to see them play the games.
One question before one statement before we go to break, fellas. And I was talking about A&T possibly being their third team. Wouldn't it be so NCAA tournament-ish like for them to have, let's assume Jackson State would win the SWAC, have A&T and Jackson State play the first full game?
That'll be fun. That'll be fun.
And we call that the HBCU National Championship.
Yeah, we hadn't got it since the time when Central and Texas Southern played a couple of years
Exactly.
ago.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really nice at that time because Central was really clamping down on the MEAC in terms of what they were getting done regular season, particularly what they did in the tournament. And Texas Southern was, frankly, on that run that they had this whole, I don't even know what adjective to explain what type of grip, vice grip they had on the SWAC regular season and tournament. So it was really nice. And I had a chance to go and look at the historical perspective when they went back and played in the NIA tournament when you had the old District 8 and they played back in the late 50s in terms of just looking at some history of the matchup where they played in that tournament. So it was fascinating to see Prairie View came out of that matchup with that going on. Let's go to our midpoint break, our halftime break. We'll be back on the other side. We'll look at the major division matchups and give you a little talk about the matchups that took place this weekend. Some good basketball continues to be played in terms of what that looks like. We'll get with that right after this break.
Your ad could be ran here. MyJBN.com/support. MyJBN.com/support for more information.
The new GMC Sierra with hands-free driving offers the most advanced and luxurious pickup in its class. Yeah, it rocks.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
Supermarket sushi, really?
No. Wait, Troy, you work here?
I'm never not working. Like Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology, up to 100% dandruff protection, even between washes.
Never not working, huh?
Oh, Troy, you're such a good teacher.
Yeah, I know. Never not working. Never not working. Never ever not working.
Are you serious?
Never not working. Dandruff protection that's never not working. Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology.
It's like a loop machine. All around town, people trying to get down.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna loud and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. As we get into the major division for the men for week number 3, two teams drop out. So we got new players. And we got a new number 1. So listen closely. A lot going on this week. We have even more receiving votes. So you're starting to see teams maybe not separate themselves. There's a lot of different actions. So we got some stuff to kind of work through and work out, as they say on the men's side. Receiving votes. Tennessee State Tigers at 11-10. They've fallen on tough times. They're at 3-5 in the conference play. They did split. Got a win there. 22 points. North Carolina Central Eagles had a tough loss as they split this weekend. They're at 10-9, 3-2, 23 points. Also receiving votes, Norfolk State Spartans, if you would, as they are at 13-7, 3-2 with 25 points. Grambling State Tigers are outside of the top 5 at 12-7, 5-2, 35. So a couple of teams that really had great starts to the season. As you get at least to the midway point in the SWAC, we're getting towards the threshold in the MEAC, have fallen out of the top 5. Just to let you know how tough it is to be in the top 5. Talking about falling out, the two teams that have fell out of the top 5, Norfolk State Spartans dropped out of the top 5. Just a couple of weeks ago, they were number one. They've had 2 losses in the last 10 days, if you would. And so they're outside, sit at 10-9, 3-2 in the MEAC. Yes, 2 losses in MEAC play in terms of what they are. 13-7, I should say, and 3-2. North Carolina Central Eagles was one of the teams you thought was going to maybe fight Norfolk State for the number one regular season champion, if you would, are at 10-9, 3-2. They had a tough come from behind home loss to a team that will sit at the top of the polls. Let's get into it and see what y'all think. At number 5, you have Morgan State Bears that took down Norfolk State for their second loss of the conference. They are at 11-9, 4-1, 76 points. Previous ranked 3, they dropped to 5 as they got it done in terms of what took place there. At number 4, you have Southern Jaguars, 10-10 on the season, 6-1. 2 first place votes, 82 points. They moved down from number 1 as they split this weekend with a tough loss in terms of what's going on there. Let's move to number 3. Here comes the Braves. They took that open season loss to Jackson State, and they've run off 5 straight wins, including some tough ones on the road. So they sit number 5. They were not ranked. Now they jump in the top 5, sitting at 9-10, 6-1, 2 first place votes, 86 points. So they're getting it done when you talk about what they were able to do there. Let's move on to number 2, Howard Bison. Yeah, those Howard Bison are back to playing some basketball. They're one of the hottest teams out there also with 5 wins, sitting at straight wins, if you would, 12-10, 4-1. Had a major upset at Norfolk State last week, and they continue to roll. 3 first place votes, 98. They move up 4 spots from number 5 in terms of what's going on this past weekend. So I wanted to make sure you understood that in terms of what took place there in terms of some of these key matchups. When you look at Morgan State, they lost to Howard that is sitting at number 2. I wanted to make sure people realize that. 88-56. Now, Morgan State did bounce back and defeat Norfolk State in one way. They pretty much dropped Norfolk State outside of the polls, just to give you some indication there. But guess who's number 1? Maryland Eastern Shore Hawks. We had about this program so long, and they probably rolling quietly getting it done. They're sitting at 10-8, 4-1, and they got 4 first place votes, not ranked, jump in the polls all the way to number 1 with 111 points. They take down Central on the road 59-58. And that is after they bounce back and they take down South Carolina State on the road 76-60. Their previous loss in terms in conference play was their first game in conference when they lost to Norfolk State 57-46, but they've run it off since there. They defeated Howard 82-73. Delaware State 68-66. Maryland, South Carolina State 76-70, and just defeated North Carolina Central 59-58, as I said. 4-1 in conference play. That's your new number 1. Take it and leave it. I'm going with you, AD Drew. Woo. I told you I had something fire. I want to see what you say about this one. Get your calculator out. Where's your computer?
I'm almost speechless on this one, Dr. Cavil. Almost speechless. First of all,
you did pause, so you were speechless for a minute. I got you.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, that was a very pregnant pause. That was a 9-month pregnant pause right there.
There was no creamies on that.
Yeah. First of all, damn you, Alcorn State. And great run that you have had in this way. But were it not for Alcorn State, Dr. Cavil, do you realize this would have been the first time all season that you would have had every team in your poll not upside down? Alcorn State was the only team in this poll that was upside down. So damn you for Alcorn State for your non-conference record. All you had to do was get one more, and then would have been the first time. Hopefully next week. Now I say this, now next week everybody will be upside down. So you know how that goes. But looking at this, Maryland Eastern Shore. I'm still trying to scratch my head on that one, Dr. Cavil.
Four straight. And let me get it straight. Alcorn actually has won 6 straight.
I understand your justification for having Maryland Eastern Shore up there, but I'm supposed to get into you like you got into me. Despite the head-to-head with Maryland Eastern Shore over Howard in the conference opener, I still can't say. I guess this. Howard has more sexy victories than Maryland Eastern Shore.
They do.
So, as a human voter, we all love our sex. So that's the that's why I would have had to go with Howard over Maryland Eastern Shore. Despite Morgan defeated your previous number one. Correct me if I'm wrong. The number one from 2 weeks ago. Norfolk was like number 3 last week, and they now sit. That only got them to number 5, Dr. Cavil. I've got to question that. I think Morgan should have been up ahead of Southern and possibly Alcorn if you consider Morgan's non-conference. Non-conference.
All this East Coast bias.
I'm not doing East Coast bias. I'm really not trying to get the East Coast bias. I'm you asked my opinion. I'm giving my opinion. I'm just throwing out things. If I would have put pen to paper or finger to keyboard,
this really has thrown him off.
I am glad I did not see this before I put this on the screen. That's all I'm gonna say. Go ahead, y'all.
The great Davey Whitney is looking down right now, shaking his head. The Wiz is shaking his head. Alcorn has won 6 in a row. 6 in a row since that early elbow to Jackson State. Landon Bussey has not had. Dominic Bruton is somewhere shooting threes right now. I'm telling you, this Alcorn State team, this is a tough team. Landon Bussey got him. He got them in the right direction. They're trending upward. That was a shocker, the way they started off swag play with the loss of Jackson State. But I tell you what, we're talking about Howard being one of the hottest teams out there. They won 4 in a row, but Alcorn sitting over there, they won 6 straight. This is a good basketball team that will lock you up on the defensive side of the ball. They play tough man-to-man defense. So I really like this Alcorn State basketball team. The one that really opened my eye this past weekend, Howard destroying Morgan State. That was, golly, I did not see that coming. Yeah. When you talk about beating a team and then Morgan State flipping that back around and beating Norfolk State last night on ESPN2, it said a lot to me about this Howard basketball team. But I probably still would have had Alcorn in front of them, despite the upside down overall record.
So we in agreement. Southern is behind Morgan, don't y'all? We are in agreement on that.
Yeah, I think Southern's behind Morgan. I really love Morgan State scoring. Isaiah Burke can fill it up.
Maybe I can see that. Maybe it's that. But Southern was number 1. You have them fall maybe 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, shoot, you had Norfolk fall all the way out, so.
In that matchup against Morgan State. They were on fire and shot 47.4 from the 3.
Yeah.
They were lighting it up, and they just could not miss at home. The crowd got into a Showtime band, and it looked like a true basketball arena. And everybody in that Howard talking about, hey, this is what we do. But I love the viewers out there, live listeners, if you would. Edwin D. Moore says, what? He just cracked up. Ricky Bird, he couldn't even put any words. He just put smiling faces, laughing faces. Mike D. Jones said, Trump poll, go Braves. Leonard Lowe, he said, good evening, fellas. The MEAC 3-peat is going to be a little more difficult than I thought by Norfolk State University's parties. I love it. Truthful that is. Gucci Stan Hardy says, JSU men's basketball heading to Grambling this weekend. You know that rival's always good. Ricky Burton says, in there, Landy Bussey got Alcorn rolling. Yes, he does. Alcorn on Monday in terms of that Grambling team. Boy, that matchup going into Louisiana, Mississippi going to Louisiana this weekend is going to be interesting. Somebody is going to see if they're going to be able to make a statement. We got a top 5 matchup if you look at it between, at this point, 3 versus 4 in terms of that matchup. Will be interesting to see what goes on Saturday. So I love it in terms of what's going on there. So let me fascinating to see what we have there.
Question, Doc.
Yep.
Got a question for your voters. How does Tennessee State get into the receiving votes? They are upside down in the conference, 3-5 in the conference. That's 37.5%. You know, everybody else is shooting at in this poll is 60% or better in conference. I mean, everybody else on this list has either 1 or 2 conference losses, and then you got Tennessee State at 3-5. Which one of these is not like the other, as the old song goes? You know, they are right side up overall, but in conference they've done the sum squad of 0 in conference.
I agree with you. Tennessee State, remember, they were like as high as number 2.
Yeah.
So what is happening is they just keep precipitating and falling. And if they continue to route they doing, you won't have to worry about them, AD Drew. They will be outside of the receiver vote. So it's a great point you make. And what it was, they just started so hot, it's just taking them a time for gravity to do what it needs to do with this team, unfortunately, because they are falling like a hard rock. Let's get into our last break. We'll come back on the other side, tell you some games, talk about a little bit. We've done a little bit, so we'll look forward and tease out some games that you have coming up this weekend. I think we touched on that a little bit too, but we'll close out to say what to look at, talk about Mike D. Jones and his Alcorn Braves with Whitney, and see if they can continue and make that statement with a top 5 matchup as they hit the road again. Can they continue to do what they're doing and show, yeah, we mean business? I love this matchup in terms of these teams right here. They're going to go at it. Both of them are 6-1 coming in that matchup, and somebody's going to come out holding a piece of that first place, at least after the first half of the season for the most part. Let's get into this last break. We'll be right back on the other side. Great stuff.
Thank you guys for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do. Brian, AD, Roy, all you guys at BCSN. We really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
We'll be there soon.
We? Is this the one?
Well, let's say I found the one who takes me to another level. Always stays calm under pressure. Most importantly, the one that helps me discover the coolest places.
This sounds wonderful.
Come outside, I'll introduce you.
They're here.
Definitely the one.
Introducing the all-new Nissan Frontier.
At CDW, we get speed as the new currency of success.
Our team spends way too much time tending to outdated applications and software when they should be focused on driving application agility and innovation.
CDW Amplified Development Services modernizes software and application development to help accelerate innovation and digital transformation.
So you mean building new applications, UI, and mobile interfaces?
Well, you said you needed to innovate more quickly.
Oh, so he's a listener.
To do more at scale, trust CDW Amplified Development Services.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna love, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
Man, this Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Professor Drew. See, I took off the clinical. Professor Drew. Professor Bishop in the house. He got his tenure promotion. He came and ratified by the board. With that being said, I want to get into Brandon King. Oh, Brandon King, and I'm sure he's making a statement for a lot of Tennessee State faithful out there. Tennessee State hadn't put two good back-to-back games since December. We are in trouble. All I can say is, thankfully, y'all not in the SWAC. Because if y'all in the SWAC, then you would have to worry about HBCU teams, SWAC teams busting your head to the white meat. At least you can say it's historically white college. I don't know. Maybe that means something. Anyway, yeah, it kind of looks good, Brandon. Keep up. Keep doing your thing. Keep doing your thing. With that being said, let's get into some of these matches this weekend. What's going on? The big one in the SWAC. We got a big one in the MEAC as well on the men's side. We'll look at the women's side as well. We got 2 top 5 matchups this weekend. 2 top 5 matchups this weekend. In the SWAC, you'll see it on Saturday with Alcorns traveling to Southern. You got 9 and 10. They sit at 6 and 1 in the conference. Brave. You got the Jaguars at 10 and 10, sitting at 6 and 1. Both of them have 2 first place votes. Somebody's got a chance to really make a statement with this 3-4 matchup this weekend. The other one you want to consider is in the MEAC, which is a top 5 matchup. It has the number 1 team going on the road with Morgan State playing really well. So you got 11 and 18. Both teams will win the records overall, which is always nice. 11 and 18 going up against 11 and 19. As Charles kind of alluded to earlier, this is maybe a chance for the Hawks to really make a first major statement with one of the brands that have been playing well in the MEAC over the last couple of years, particularly this year with Morgan with some big wins, sitting at 11 and 9, number 5 in the poll, and sitting at 4 and 1. So both teams are 4 and 1. So we got first place on the line in both conferences in the men's side this weekend. Starting with you, Charles, which of the game are you going to be watching? The good thing is you got one on Saturday and one on Monday, so you really can watch both.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Alcorn and Southern, I mean, that was going to be a real rim rocker when you talk about 2 teams that can score, but they play such great, intense defense. If you're a fan of defensive struggles and guys really having to work to get their shots, that's the game for you. And then, of course, Maryland Eastern Shore at Morgan State Monday, January 30th. That one I'm definitely going to keep my eyes on because I'm looking forward to this matchup when you talk about Maryland Eastern Shore. And Isaiah Burke, like I said, that guard, he can really fill it up. I enjoyed watching him last night against Norfolk State because they couldn't stop it.
Yeah, good stuff there. Drew, what are your thoughts? I want to throw this in. I had those 2 games, but you have a game that you can watch on ESPNU or ESPN Plus was North Carolina Central, Norfolk State. Now, both of these teams have winning records, so in terms of that, it's an impressive matchup. Sitting at 10 and 9 is Central, 13 and 7. Both teams just dropped out of the poll, so they're going to really want to get this. It's on Monday as well, so they got games on Saturday where they first have to start, but you have only a day before these 2 top teams are playing, and they want to stay in the hunt. You got both teams at 3 and 2 in the conference, so this ultimately becomes a really big game because it could eliminate a team based on how things are traversing right now, are projecting, if you would, at this point in the season. What are your thoughts on any 3 of these matchups, or do you want to go off the grid and give me another?
Dr. Cavil, you just professionally stole my thunder with the Central Howard game because that was the one that I was going to.
Talk about that. I said Central. Okay. Norfolk State, so that's another good one. You right?
Yeah,
another good one.
Saturday, you got Central and Howard. Howard with 1 loss in conference, Central with 2 losses. But this is Central that we're talking about, Dr. Cavil. So this is not like this is South Carolina State, no pun intended, with that. So that's one that I am definitely interested in. And that game is on the U, Dr. Cavil, on Saturday, 6 o'clock. In Burke at the Burke. Switch it over to a couple of other games. Which set of colors are you gonna have on Saturday, Dr. Cavil, with Prairie View and Texas Southern?
Great question. I have a great answer. I hope I will have on black. You know, this is a time when you can come in. In some cases, you can wear your alpha colors. You have black and old gold. I won't put on the gold. I'll just have black. Because it's gonna be a funeral for somebody.
I I get the biggest kick, AD, out of doing both schools' alma maters. I did that during football season. I stood for one, then stood for the other.
I love it. Everybody just looks at him too, like they confused. They be like, is he just a nice guy, respectful? What's going on?
Just say nothing but respect, y'all. Nothing but respect.
Yeah.
I also want to say on HBCU Go on Saturday, 12:30 and 3 o'clock, you have Jackson State at Grambling for that doubleheader. Nice matchups, particularly when you talk about the rivals, so you know they're going to go with each other, and both of them want to stay in the hunt, so it becomes an important game. Then you get to go to FAMU, which is always nice as been part of the SWAT. You get to go down to Tallahassee. This is becoming a rivalry game on football, so we'll see what it means on the basketball side. On Monday, the 5:30, 8 o'clock game is Alabama State at FAMU for the doubleheader. Alabama State got a big win over Prairie View. FAMU is starting to get a little bit together. They play really good defense, but have some troubles scoring. Can they do a little more at home? We shall see. So there's some other games to think about when you start looking at some of the women's matchup. Jackson State continues to thrive. Grambling State started off hot, they're falling. So this is a chance. Can they make a major statement against Jackson State, or Jackson State continue to roll, beating folks by 20 points when they do win? It seems like Alabama State fixed things, and they're doing pretty good. So it's interesting on the women's side. So there's some matchups I want you to think about before I allow you to get some thoughts on some of the women matchup. I did want to say Tennessee State, can they get off the mat? They play the first place team right now on Thursday is Southeastern Missouri State Redhawks. So it'll be interesting to see, can they find a way? The thing about Tennessee State, while they have 5 losses, the top of the conference, they're only behind by 2 games. The top 6 teams, all have a record of 5-3. So they're only 2.
So they beat up on each other.
Yeah, so they just beating up on each other. So I did want to throw that in there to give you some indication of what's going on there. So that's a little bit, think about it. Let me get paused before we look at some other matches. What are your thoughts on the women's side of what I just talked about with Tennessee State?
I'm gonna put this one out there. Just want to see what the atmosphere is Saturday in Alabama State and Bethune in Daytona. I'm just gonna leave that right there. Just read between those lines. Want to see what the reception, the atmosphere will be in Daytona on that game as Alabama State takes on Bethune-Cookman.
That's a good point. Good point when they come back home first time. Tough road trip for them, not just with everything going on, AD outside of that, but they took 2 tough road losses, both men's and women. So I wonder how much of maybe that kind of affected them with that matchup. I would be remiss if we didn't talk about the women of North Carolina A&T in terms of what they're doing. They have some big matchups coming up. Before I do that, Charles, any last thoughts on any women's matchup that you want to keep your eyes on this week?
Yeah, anytime Jackson State and Southern get together, it's always classic.
I wonder if you're going to do it.
I don't care if it's Tiddlywinks. It's going to always be a classic. So looking forward to it.
Good point when you talk about that as well. Last thing I'll do here before we shut it down, giving that love, if you would, to North Carolina A&T as they continue to push forward and get it done in a lot of ways. Their next game is on Sunday, where they have Charleston that is 89 coming in to Greensboro, where the women of North Carolina A&T, the women's basketball program, sit at 13-6. Give you some love there. A lot of good stuff going on, a lot of good basketball being played. Make sure you get out and check out your teams. If you're in an area and you don't have your team, go and see some HBCU basketball. Whether that is at the Division I, major division level, go check it out. On Thursday, we'll give you some updates and give you some good action in return of what's going on with the SIAC, CIAA. Those races are heating up, as well as some Gulf Coast Athletic Conference as they get it done. And you got to make sure you keep your eyes on Langston, Tougaloo, that are outside of the HBCU conference at the NAIA level, that are playing some high-level basketball in the top 25 in terms of what they're doing. So we want to keep our eyes on that. With that being said, thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Bosch and Charles Bishop, and the newly minted Associate Professor with tenure, A.D. Drew. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Will's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. We look forward to Thursday giving you some more updates on the basketball, both men's and women's. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. DrKenyatta-Cavil. That's DrKenyatta-Cavil. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1 on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube is Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share, like, download all the information you can in terms of what we're going on, celebrating 25 years of Black College Sports Network. You know what to do. Keep us going. With that being said, dream big, continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles?
Of course.
AD Drew?
Lecture.
Dismiss.
We'll holler.
Great stuff. Great stuff.